But we do begin this hour with the race for the White House. As frontrunner for the Democratic nomination, Vice President Harris is set to campaign today in Atlanta. Georgia is still a crucial state that Harris is looking to keep blue after Joe Biden narrowly won it back in 2020. Meanwhile, former President Trump is rallying behind his new running mate, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, following controversial comments he's previously made that have now come to light. NBC News senior Washington correspondent and NBC News Now anchor Hallie Jackson has the latest from the campaign trail.
Hey there, good morning to you. Former President Trump now says he will probably end up debating Vice President Harris, although he did not commit to it, as Harris prepares to head to the swing state of Georgia today, getting ready to select a running mate as Mr. Trump now defends his. The presidential race taking shape this morning with Vice President Kamala Harris set to hit the campaign trail and former President Donald Trump in a new interview backing up his new running mate, Senator J.D. Vance.
He's got tremendous support among a certain group of people that like families.
The former president referencing Vance's controversial comments from 2021, critical of Democrats without children.
We're effectively run in this country via the Democrats, via our corporate oligarchs, by a bunch of childless cat ladies.
He's not against anything, but he loves family.
Mr. Trump also insisting that when he told a Christian audience Friday, you don't have to vote again in 4 years, he was not alluding to the end of elections if he wins, as some Democrats have suggested.
I said to the Christians in the room, don't worry about the future. You have to vote on November 5th. After that, you don't have to worry about voting anymore. I don't care, because we're going to fix it. The country will be fixed.
And the former president suggesting he may be ready to debate Vice President Harris.
I want to do a debate, and now people know who she is. She's a radical left lunatic. So the answer is yes, but I can also make a case for not doing it.
Harris has said she's ready to debate Mr. Trump. For her part, the vice president's focusing on reproductive rights, looking to link Mr. Trump to Iowa's new restrictions on abortion after 6 weeks.
Which makes Iowa the 22nd state in our country to have a Trump abortion ban.
Behind closed doors, J.D. Vance telling donors that running against Kamala Harris instead of President Biden was a little bit of a political sucker punch, according to a recording obtained by the Washington Post. Vance adding Kamala is a lot younger and obviously not struggling in the same ways that Joe Biden did. A Vance spokesperson saying Harris's, quote, far left ideas are even more radioactive than Joe Biden. Harris is also set to decide on a running mate by the middle of next week. And this morning, one major contender out. North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper withdrawing his name from consideration overnight. So as for where the rest of the Veep stakes stands, top contenders at this point include Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, who rallied for Harris in that key battleground Monday, alongside Michigan's Gretchen Whitmer, who suggested she prefers to stay in the governor's mansion. Also in the VP mix on the Democratic side, Minnesota's Tim Walz, Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, and Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona, obviously a border state. And that is notable since the Trump campaign's been targeting Harris on immigration. They're out this morning with what the campaign calls its first major TV ad buy since Harris entered the race, and it is on that topic of the border and immigration. Back to you.
Changes keep coming. Hallie Jackson, thanks. Well, as we mentioned, Vice President Harris is heading to campaign in Georgia today. And we can't forget how important black voters were in propelling Joe Biden to a win in that state 4 years ago. NBC News Washington correspondent Yamiche Alcindor spoke with a group of black men in Georgia about how the shakeup in this year's election could impact their vote.
In battleground Georgia, black men voters will be critical in the race to the White House.
I liked RFK.
Justin Samuels and Dorian Griffin are both 32-year-old small business owners. Samuels is an independent.
How has Vice President Harris being the top of the ticket impacted the way that you see this election?
Her being at the top of the ticket really made me think about creating another historic moment, not just for the country, but for also the black community as a whole, too. I think there's a lot that she has to prove. There are a lot of men in this country who need to be okay with a woman leading the country.
Griffin is a Republican. He says he's still voting for Trump.
And tell me what appeals to you about Trump.
His business acumen. When Donald Trump was president, we were all doing a lot better financially. He's always been a business icon, so why wouldn't we want that business icon to be president?
And he had this to say about Harris.
I think she hasn't done anything worth mentioning.
What would you have wanted to see Vice President Harris accomplish that she has not?
I would have liked her to kind of bring a calm to the border. The border crisis has gotten out of hand.
In 2020, President Biden narrowly flipped Georgia blue, winning by just under 12,000 votes. Democrat Darius Rawlins says he's excited for Harris.
I've never seen enthusiasm like this fast.
And you had concerns about Vice President Harris's background as a prosecutor. What got you over them?
When I started doing the research, when you see those type of things that aren't often talked about, that resonates with me.
And now all three men are waiting for November's election results. Yamiche Alcindor, NBC News, Atlanta.
Well, this morning in Northern California, one of the largest wildfires in the state's history is still growing at a rapid pace. Devastated families are returning to find homes turned to ash. NBC News correspondent Steve Patterson is in Chico, California, and has the latest.
Yeah, this fire will not stop growing. In now less than a week, already 370,000 acres, the largest active wildfire burning across the country, the 6th largest fire in California history.
Firefighters battling the Park Fire, hoping to take advantage of cooler weather this week to increase containment of this massive blaze. Thousands are under evacuation alerts, dozens of homes destroyed, along with countless close calls.
Family and friends were like, you got to get out of there. I decided to stay. I had a couple of people with me to fight the fire, and we knew it was going to be bad. We just didn't know how bad it was going to be.
The man accused of starting the wildfire appearing in court for the first time, facing felony arson charges. In Central California, the 53,000-acre Burrell fire leveling this historic mining town and nearly trapping 2 Kern County Sheriff deputies.
We appear to be surrounded by fire. 10-4.
Thankfully, the officers survived. In Northern California, much of the burn zone covers areas that have been repeatedly impacted by wildfires, including Paradise, California, where 85 people died in 2018. Amid the devastation, moments of joy. These Rottweiler puppies and their mother, stuck when their owner's truck broke down, were rescued by Butte County sheriffs. A small victory as the war against wildfires rages on.
The good news here is that the weather has been very cooperative for firefighters who are also making progress on the fire containment. Now up to 14%. They're pushing it away from population centers, away from the city of Chico, away from the town of Paradise. But there is more hot, dry weather in the forecast, further elevating the fire danger on an already dangerous firefight. Back to you.
Just incredible size there of that fire. Steve, thanks. And time now for a check of our morning News Now forecast. NBC meteorologist Angie Lassman joins us again. Hey, Angie.
Hey there, Stephen. We've got some rain to talk about. We've, of course, got to deal with that here through the day today as a cold front works its way to the east. And here's some of the spots that we're seeing rain across parts of the Great Lakes. Notice the parts of the Midwest, the Ohio Valley. But we've also got a flash flood emergency happening in parts of Vermont. Caledonia County is where we've seen ample amounts of rain. We're getting reports of washed out roads. So we're concerned about that situation there. That rain is starting to move out, but they really received a lot of rain in a short amount of time. And there's more rain on the way for this general region from the mid-Atlantic to the northeast and down to the south. Basically, Maine to Florida is where we're looking at for some scattered showers and some thunderstorms through the day today. We'll see a couple more of those here across parts of the Midwest as we watch this cold front work its way to the east. As we get into tomorrow, we'll see once again kind of that same unsettled behavior of some of these thunderstorms focused mainly across parts of the New England and mid-Atlantic regions. The good news about tomorrow, severe risk is going to be low, but we'll still have that heavy rain threat, so we'll have to watch for that to impact folks. Today, though, big chunk of the country under the severe risk. We've got 18 million people from Omaha to Des Moines down through St. Louis, Nashville included in this, and extending a little farther to the north and including parts of the northern plains, too. The biggest thing that you should be concerned about is those strong winds. That's our main threat. That's what we're watching for, the greatest chance of happening. Those wind gusts over 75 miles per hour, but not going to rule out a little bit of hail, potentially an isolated tornado or two. But again, the heavy rain will be there. Notice where we have that slight risk of flash flooding through the day today, from Des Moines to Knoxville, Chattanooga, Nashville, some of those same areas that could see some of those stronger thunderstorms develop as well. Anywhere from 1 inch to 2 inches of rain, but upwards of 3 inches in some of these more isolated spots is what we're watching for. Meanwhile, have you forgot about the tropics? It's been a little quiet for an extended period of time, but we are far from done with this season. It is far from over. We've got a long way to go all the way into November. And we have a 60% chance of this kind of tropical depression potentially developing by the end of the week. There's still a lot of factors with this, so we're not going to pay too much attention to exactly how this plays out down the line, but we're going to keep a close eye on it. Notice where we're looking at the development zone across parts of the Caribbean and off the coast of Florida potentially here as we get through the next week or so. Meanwhile, the Olympics, that has been, I think, what everybody's been focusing on. But look at these temperatures in Paris today, 100 degrees. We're talking extreme heat. This is going to be something that likely will impact some sports. We've got volleyball going on, of course, equestrian, all those outdoor activities, likely going to see some really warm temperatures. Feels like temperatures about 110. Those late afternoon showers and thunderstorms will be out there as well, and those could last into the evening. And when we look ahead to the next 7 days there, things do get better. We'll actually see temperatures getting back to closer, near average kind of range as we get through the rest of the week, Stephen. But Thursday and Friday, we'll finally get rid of the rain and we'll have a little more sunshine for folks that are competing and for folks that are enjoying the Olympics there.
Hopefully they held on to those clear ponchos they were all wearing during the opening ceremonies.
That's a good point.
There were
They'll need it
so
today.
many of those. All right, Angie, thanks so much. Okay, turning now to the Middle East, where diplomatic efforts are intensifying there to try to de-escalate tensions between Israel and Hezbollah. Lebanon is on edge after Israel said it would respond to a rocket strike on the Israel-controlled Golan Heights that killed 12 young people. NBC's international correspondent Raf Sanchez joins us now from Tel Aviv with more on this. So, Raf, what's the latest on this ongoing effort we've heard about to try to stop the conflict from spreading deeper into Lebanon? And how likely is this major Israeli attack now?
So, Stephen, we saw Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu up on the Golan Heights yesterday. He went to visit that soccer field where those 12 kids were killed in what Israel says was a rocket strike carried out by Iranian-backed Hezbollah militants. And the Prime Minister vowed that there will be a severe response. Now, we don't yet know what that looks like, but one of the big questions is, will Netanyahu give the Israeli military the order to attack Beirut, the capital of Lebanon? That is something he has refrained from doing over these last 9.5 months of war, but he is under major pressure from the far right of his government to respond in a significant way. Now, the United States is saying it supports Israel's right to retaliate, but it is also counseling restraint. And we know that it has been sort of acting as a go-between in the Israeli government, the Lebanese government, which don't have any diplomatic relations, and then by extension Hezbollah, trying to make sure that we don't end up in a cycle of escalation that leads to all-out war. Stephen.
Well, Ralph, wanted to ask you about another big story out of Israel that we're following. We understand 9 Israeli soldiers suspected of severely abusing a Palestinian prisoner will be in court today, but their arrest yesterday prompted this backlash from protesters storming 2 military bases in response. So walk us through what happened there and these accusations against the soldiers.
Yeah, this was a spasm of political mob violence, which has stunned many liberal Israelis. So here's what happened. Yesterday, military police showed up at a really notorious Israeli detention center where Palestinian prisoners from Gaza are being held. It's a center where there have long been allegations of torture by Israeli authorities. And those military police arrested 9 soldiers who were suspected of having been involved in the torture, in the serious abuse of one Palestinian detainee. Now, shortly after that, you saw this mob of right-wing activists led by some Israeli members of parliament, and they stormed through the gates of that facility. And then a couple of hours later, the exact same thing happened. This time they were storming into an Israeli army base where those soldiers were being detained. Now, this has led to widespread condemnation from Israeli political leaders. And we saw the chief of staff, the head of the Israeli military, saying that this is borderline anarchy. But there are a lot of questions today about the behavior of the Israeli police, who did not stop the mob from storming into these bases. They don't appear at this point to have carried out any arrests. And Israel's own defense minister is questioning whether the far-right national security minister, who is in charge of the police, gave them a specific order not to intervene in this situation. It's a serious allegation. It's one that the national security minister is denying. But this is a stunned Israel today, and it is bringing renewed focus on allegations that Israeli forces may have been torturing some of these detainees. Stephen.
Awful allegations there. A lot of moving parts in the region. Raf, also wanted to ask you about Gaza and the humanitarian situation there worsening yet again. The health ministry there declaring a polio epidemic. The World Health Organization says that they need a ceasefire to go in and vaccinate children. Tell us about that. And is there any update on a potential ceasefire?
Yeah, Stephen, polio, a disease from the early 20th century. It is largely stamped out across much of the planet. And it appears, according to the World Health Organization, to have broken out in Gaza because the healthcare system has basically completely collapsed. Kids have not been getting vaccinations now in 9.5 months. At this point, polio has been detected in wastewater. We haven't yet seen it in any active patients, but it is raising a lot of concern about the healthcare system in devastated Gaza. In terms of the possibility of a ceasefire, the Biden administration had been sounding more hopeful about sealing a deal. We know the CIA director was in Rome over the weekend. He was meeting with Israeli, Egyptian, and Qatari counterparts. Israel and Hamas are still kind of blaming each other for the fact that we haven't reached a deal yet. They're each accusing the other of trying to make last-minute changes, and all of this more complicated by those tensions between Israel and Hezbollah. Stephen.
Certainly so. All right, Raf, thanks so much for those updates.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.